So I'm Ronnie,
I'm Daniel.
and welcome to the Long and Thick Podcast, where we help you navigate the noise and cut through the bullshit in the health and wellness space.
Yes, sir.
Let that sink in just a bit. We're here, man. We're doing it. We're doing the damn thing. Man, tell me and our listeners a little bit about who you are. You said you're Daniel, but give us a little bit more.
All right. I'm Daniel Colombo.
Whoa.
I am a personal trainer, fitness coach here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Love it.
I work in person at Gym 5 in East Nashville, a wonderful legacy fitness institution over the last 18 years. It's a pretty stellar space in the city.
Yeah.
As well as helping people in town and abroad via virtual coaching means.
Right on. How long have you been working in the health and wellness space?
That's been a newer addition to my life over the last 3 years.
Okay.
Prior to that, I had a small little stint in restaurant administration and a much longer tenure in music, both playing live as well as producing and recording.
Gotcha. And fitness has been a part of your life. How long would you say? That whole time or?
And then some. So it started off, I approached fitness when I became 22, post some surgery I had on my torso, very humble beginnings, small deformed little kid, had a thing called pectus excavatum, which is when your sternum and ribs don't grow out properly. That didn't necessarily stop me or wouldn't have stopped me from being a fitter person, but didn't seem right to build on top of that, you know, just in a vain fashion. It's just like, why do I want to build on top of a really wonky foundation?
Sure.
So I got that corrected. And once I was on the other side of rehab and getting the okay that I could start exercising more without any ill effect, that's when fitness really took hold. So that was when 22, so about 15, 16 years ago, but it's been ever present in my life ever since.
Okay. So that's a little bit of the nutshell of how you got into it. Where did the evolution of like wanting to make this your work kick in, and sort of why? I know you said 3 years and some, but like what was that shift? If you had been, training for that long, what made you want to do that?
Seeing the end result of more than a decade's worth of work and how that affected and impacted my life overall in such a positive fashion. I think a lot of that time, though, was spent just toiling around with different methods and modalities and chasing a bunch of different things, hoping to find the best through line that made the most sense for me.
Sure.
And after that time, and seeing the effect it had on me, it's just like, well, this actually makes sense to help share this with other people. It never was on my radar too much originally, because while it was a passion, I didn't necessarily want to turn a passion into a profession, because I did that with music, and that didn't really feel good in the long term, whereas this actually is the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
Okay.
So
Funny. I was about to ask.
It's a very big contrast. So it's not necessarily emotionally bound to my creativity, which music was. This is a very wholesome and such a symbiotic approach with my clients. And I get so much more emotional benefit from that, and being able to see the positive change. It's just far more rewarding.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What about you?
So I'm Ronnie Grant. I'm a New Yorker, migrated to Nashville about, 5 years ago, something like that. I'm terrible with timelines. I came here in 2019, left, came back in 2020 for massage therapy school at the Mind Body Institute. Reason being, I have some connections through my current boss and somebody else that they had known and recommended, Blake Mundell with the Titans. And so I was like, okay, I knew that I wanted to get into this like sort of realm or into sports or some kind of like providery healthcare-esque type of thing, but started later in terms of education. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to go to PT school when I'm 28 and, study for 8 years. And so this was a really good option. I'm currently working downtown Nashville at Nashville Chiropractic and Sports Therapy, an amazing clinic that we just built out, a gym. I wear a lot of hats there. I have my massage license. I have a history with training, and I'm currently undergoing, getting the certification to be a trainer, even though in Tennessee you don't need that, which is sort of amazing for me and also very terrible for most other people that work with a trainer that's like, guess what? Me and my uncle used to carry milk jugs, and you're like, no, that doesn't make you a trainer.
The complete lack of validity is a tough one.
It is. Yeah. That barrier to entry is extremely low. And so that's helpful for people that are willing to do the extra work and study on the outside of that, but bad for most cases. So yeah, I wear a lot of hats. I work with rehab patients. I work with people that are just looking to, level up their performance generally or sport specifically. I've worked with professional athletes. I've worked with people with missing limbs. I mean, the gamut is pretty wide, which I'm very, very thankful for. And I got into this space. Ultimately, I had really fucked my back in, I don't know what year, but I had some pretty gnarly, like ridiculous stuff going down my legs, the wicked sciatica, things that were indicative of like some degree of a disc injury in my low back.
Like a slip or a bulge or something.
Some kind of, something was twanging. And it was from having done a CrossFit workout. I worked as a CrossFit coach for a minute in Long Island, and had stopped that, and then was like, I'll just put myself through like a WOD one day and just hit some like nasty overhead squats, and was like, holy shit, like something went super sour. Had that probably for 11, 12 months of just like pretty bad, like that initial lean in the morning, my back was trashed.
Those moments where you think that like this is now permanently altered my physical destiny, that it's irreparable, and I will no longer be the same Ronnie Grant and spry giraffe form as I used to be.
Yes, the wiggly noodle is no longer. Man, that is its own topic, chronic pain. And I mean, just from the week 1 of like, holy shit, my back has literally never stopped hurting, to like month 4, right, is like it physically changes your brain. All that to say, I had a really, really beautiful interaction with a acupuncturist actually in Long Island, and it's the first time that I had any relief. And I swear to God, it was like I had the appointment, had the session. It was a little bit out there, but I was like, fuck it, we're here. Like I'm down to try anything, right? That is very typical of pain patients. Like you get to a point where you're like, dude, give me like a rain dance, and anything will just like, I'm down to try. And I like finished the session, and I was like, holy shit, like moving around. I could not believe it. Like it almost brought me to tears, just with how significant of a change it was.
Right. To what not only that physical relief is, but also the psychological and the emotional release of being like, oh, I have a new lease on life.
I'm not
pretty
doomed.
Much, right. Already resigned yourself to like, what does my life look like if I'm crippled compared to what I used to be?
Yeah.
Which is a terrifying thought. It's a knock on wood scenario for me. Mine only came out from after surgery, being like, oh, I don't even know. I can't move my arms, nothing. Sure. But thankfully, knock on wood, I've never had an injury that hit like a bolt of lightning.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, I might be fucked.
Right. Yeah, it is a lot to process. But having that experience, I mean, I'm glad I did in hindsight, but it really made me feel driven to want to provide some semblance of the same relief for people. And so I was like, okay, I want to get educated. I want to help people. I want to be able to provide in some capacity what this person has provided for me. And so from there, the snowball went down the hill, and a lot of doors open, some closed, and here we are, and our paths crossed. So I mean, it's been a beautiful ride.
Spoiler alert for those listening, that he then took that same torch that was bestowed on him in terms of shining new light on physical capabilities and ease and performance gain to then people even like myself and plenty of people that I even send to you. So it's cool to see that pay it forward scenario. Like
I appreciate it.
Someone exposing you to the possibilities and the wonder of what the body is capable of in terms of repairing itself and reorienting. And then seeing that and understanding how that was cultivated in you, and how I've personally firsthand felt the effects and the benefit of that. And also anyone that I send to you also has like a gleaming recommendation to other people as well, which is always good.
I love to hear
which
that.
is
Yeah,
very much why we're sitting here today on top of it. So
it is. Yeah, it is. No HIPAA broken. You understand? Yeah, man, it's been a really cool ride. And I think it's, when I think about some of, our like trades and information, we've just got to the point of like, hey, I'm dealing with this. Can you help me with that? And, I'll pop over to you in the gym now. Daniel's has written a strength program for me. It is so important to get outside of your own way. Like technically, can he take care of himself? Yes. But there comes a time when like you need to rely on somebody else to some degree.
It takes a village, as they say.
Yeah. And you gain so much more. And so like, can I write a strength program? Yes. But he has such a different experience, viewpoint, like, approach that has done nothing but provide gains for me. I mean, literally I PR every single week since I've started. There's not been one time.
That's
either
sick.
by
It's the best
volume.
feeling.
Yeah, either by volume or by pure weight. And I've made some pretty wrong jumps and still been like, whoops.
We got that.
Yeah. I was just underselling, but yeah, man, it's I think you put it so clearly, like it's not sexy, but it just fucking works. And you are the living proof of it. I mean, people are absolutely blown away lifting with you. You're like a sleeper build. That's not a sleeper build. It's like, it just is, you're like an anomaly. All my buddies from New York will be like, dude, what the fuck? We put something up of like lifting weeks ago. And they're just like, what on earth? Like how the size like doesn't compute.
If we're being real, it's just the trauma of growing up a very tiny human being and having somewhere in me that like I need to change those stars.
Sure.
So,
I mean, it works though. I
Yeah.
mean, that's belief driving your ship and making you push to, limits that other people would be potentially feeling and saying, I'm on the threshold. And you're like, no.
Yeah.
Not
If
today.
it won't kill me, I'll do it. Especially
Sure.
when it comes to like making myself bigger or stronger. Like that's the crux of my neuroses, right? Growing up as a small person. And also in South Florida, it's such a vanity driven, like aesthetic, it's just,
you're in the beach, dude.
It's a beach town. It is, it's a coastal thing on top of it where you see differences in philosophy seemingly so like up and down coastal regions rather than more rural regions. But it is just taken to the nth degree in South Florida, informed by like OG Venice Beach stuff, but just this weird bastardized version taken to the extreme. So being 5'11" and 120 pounds the first time I ever set foot in a gym,
props to you to even do it.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we got here, right? I mean,
Sure.
It's as mediocre as it may feel for me sometimes, but being around just absolute just tanks of humans. I mean, and this is not to sound, jaded or sexist anyway, but also just like absolutely ripped females too. So like you're totally outgunned in every sense of the word. And like you're like, what the hell? Where the fuck do I even start?
Yeah.
But once I eventually got my ball rolling, that's really when the fire was lit. It's just like, I don't know how long it's going to take me, but I'm going to find a way to be as strong as these people. Genetically, I'll never be as big. Sure. But I will find a way to compete some way, somehow. Yeah. And that's just kind of taking me the whole way.
I mean, you've done it. That's the beauty. Is like the proof is in the pudding. People don't want to listen to somebody who doesn't have some degree of credibility, right? Sure. Like I might be just as correct explaining something about strength, but it will not hit the same because I don't move the same numbers. I don't have the same physique. And that is what it is. Some people are like wrongfully, given credit because they just took a shit ton of steroids and they're like, here, do my program. It works for everybody. You're so different than that. You have the proof, you have the results, you have them with countless people that you work with. So, I'm very fortunate that, our paths crossed the way that they did. And here we are. I mean, we just started a fucking podcast. Like I mean, it feels like we were like, hey, should we do this? And then
It just happened.
literally, like, it was like, all right, when's our first film day? And you're like, here, I bought all this shit. You ready to go? I was like, yeah.
It was informed by my usual way of trying to overthink everything and try to perfect everything. And it's not something that I wanted to fall by the same sword for this. So it was just quite literally trying to improve on a shortcoming that I always get stuck in the quicksand of overthinking with.
Prior to just like,
Right. So we talked about it. You know, you were someone that I had zero doubt in my mind would be like the best inclusion because we have a ton of the same value, but we come from such different backgrounds and we occupy such different realms in health and fitness.
Sure.
That the comparison and contrasting nature of it, I thought would just be great.
Yeah.
So it really was, you know, for anyone listening, we talked about it, said yes, kind of glossed over some overarching details. And we just like, all right, just pick a day. And we have to do it.
Yeah.
And we did it. We got gear. Here we are.
Yeah.
And I think I'm sure you'll agree that the overall goal for this is to take a lot of chaotic information, a lot of conflicting information, and distill it down to something that is palatable and useful to the everyday person.
Yeah.
And while we might not know everything, we still know how. We have found systems and applications for a multitude of different health and fitness related things that we've been able to extract the maximum amount of positive performance from with next to no ill effect.
Yep.
And now we get to impart that to other people. We did the groundwork. We've respectively did our, you know, lumps on our feet, our academic work, you know, we've fumbled around, you know, exclusively and respectively and figured out what does work and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And we get to take 10 years of bullshit and get it
And
down to truncate it down to 30 minutes of like, here, I hope this helps you. So
yeah, well said. No, it's funny when we think about the, like, who we are, there is a lot of opposing things, but there's also some really funny, unique commonalities between like my skateboard background culture and your music and I play music and the hardcore scene and just like there's just like a vibe to being a tattooed, health-minded person. There's no shortage of them, but hopefully there is a shortage of people that can make you laugh while also teaching you something without you making you feel like a fucking idiot.
True.
Right? Like, or having to like go and Google 50 different things after you listen. It should just be like, wow, that little nugget of whatever, I would be happy. If we make money doing stuff, cool, like for sure. But honestly, getting responses from folks that are just like, hey, I listened to this. It was fucking fun to listen to. It made my drive enjoyable. It made blah, 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 whatever. I don't care. If there was something extracted where they genuinely are like, that was awesome. And when you said this and spoke about this, it painted this in a different light. And ever since I've thought about my walks and blah, like that's amazing. Right? Fuck the money. Like that's like life altering stuff that is just so profoundly valuable. Like,
sure. And I think that's what we also as people look for as well.
For sure.
Is we want something down to earth. We want something practical, reasonable. And it's like, hey, listen, this doesn't check every box, but it's going to give you the largest bang for your buck moving forward.
Yeah.
Because I know we've talked about at length, just the hyperbole on the internet, you know, quite literally the bullshit in the health and wellness space.
Yeah, man.
It's just everything is to the nth degree overpromised, woefully underdelivered, excuse me.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to do our best to impart something else that actually will be beneficial and also manage expectations along the way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we hope to be your cheat code uncles in the journey you're about to embark on. So, all right. I'm a new client with you. How has your history, your own training, fill in arc, informed and evolved and changed over the years to taking someone like me, the new client? Like what have you distilled down? What would a program look like now for someone new, given all that you've done and been through?
Sure. As you touched on earlier, it's the best things that work are often the least sexy. And knowing a lot of prevailing data now toward health and longevity, which sure, my own personal motivations is still going to be propped up by the fact that I never want to be a small person anymore. I still want the overall end game benefit to be living as long and healthy along those years as possible. So with that, a lot of metrics now really just boil down to how much lean muscle can you keep on your frame later in your life, what your grip strength is like, what the muscle mass is on the lower half of your body. So that informs a lot of what I do with my clients. And one, I'm not trying to talk them out of whatever goal that they have, but generally it's massaging them toward the idea. It's just like, whatever the goal is, I assure you that you being as maximally strong as possible is the best case scenario to get both your goals as well as a end game likelihood that you didn't even realize was possible.
Sure.
So I didn't necessarily always go that way myself. When I first started, I, like anybody, had no clue what I was doing in the gym. I was fumbling around. I was a tiny beanpole frail little child man. And hanging out with friends who at least had a better basis and regimen than I did. So I just tried to emulate as best I could. I won't say those years were wasted, but they weren't very productive for me.
Okay.
And then that took me, I got clued into calisthenics, like advanced bar work. And I was like, oh, it's like urban gymnastics. That looks cool.
Yeah.
And that plays to my advantage of being a lighter person, kind of wiry and starting to gain some strength. Did that for a handful of years, but then wasn't really getting any bigger. Could get stronger, but
the strength is pretty like mind blowing when it comes to calisthenic athletes. I mean, you think of gymnastics, right? Like you see somebody do like an iron cross and you're like, wow, that looks simple. And you try and you're like literally becoming an earthquake, just like not even a third of the way
not
up.
even like probably a tenth of the way, honestly.
That's true.
And then
That's very
your
true.
Joints feel like they're going to snap off like connects pretty much.
And you watch them just like silent, like
I was never that good, mind you. I had some cool stuff in the toolkit.
Well, you
back
still
in the day.
do crazy stuff in the
little
schoolyard.
bit.
I'm like every now and then.
It's a hard thing to give up once you've started down the path. But then there's a good swath of years where, because I did want to get bigger, I did just drink the bodybuilding Kool-Aid, which I would say overall occupies the most of my years as a majority. But aside from getting some strength and some size, it was not the most beneficial. You know, the cost to benefit ratio wasn't where it should be, at least in terms of my standards.
Sure.
And then the very latter half of my career over the last, say 3 years was really diving more into maximal strength, lower volume, higher intensity stuff. And that has been the biggest benefit. And that ultimately is what I impart on my clients. There are certain nuance there where someone is fresh, never been in a gym before. You can't just throw them into the meat grinder.
Right.
You have to ascertain their limits, previous injury potential, all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
But still, the best case scenario for all things health and longevity and well-being, weight loss, all those things still starts with a comprehensive strength training program and getting as much muscle on their form as possible. So it seems very simple, and it is very simple. It's just hard to get people to remain disciplined and staying through that path, because all it is just get stronger every visit. You do that for a long enough timeline. We've talked about this before. You put in your 10 years or so, and then everything else is just cruising. You're like, oh, my body knows exactly what to do now. It is firing on all cylinders. I feel better than I've ever felt. I look better than I've ever looked.
And the maintenance mode on that is a lot less in terms of strength. Right. Or sorry. The maintenance required to maintain what you've built up to is a lot less than people realize.
Sure.
It's not easy. It's not chill. It's still hard work. It's still heavy lifts and hard work, but it's not like the same grueling process.
Yeah. And so it's not gender dependent or sex dependent. It's just a man's body and a woman's body can benefit from the exact same thing. And the health benefits come in the exact same way. So it's just changing the perception and the thought process. And a lot of times too, just the aversion to it. It's not a man or woman dependent thing, but there are some people like, well, why do I want to act like a bodybuilder, or why do I want to be as strong as possible? I just want to lose weight, or I just want to be toned. They just don't realize that the benefit they want in the long term comes from strength.
Yeah.
What about you? First, like, where did it start? Where was your first, approach to helping someone on a physical level? And then how did that morph over the years, and how did it be refined and elevated to the present day Ronnie that we know today?
It's really been a interesting evolution, I would say. I think there's some core part of me that has always like resonated with healing and healers, right? When you think back to like even, more ancient societies, like everyone had their sort of roles. Like maybe it could have been a hunter gatherer. It would have been pretty dope at fucking climbing trees, but like, like there's something
I
about.
instead would like to be the medicine man.
Yes. There's something that fascinates me about like the body alchemy and like the
Do you have a shaman tattoo on your body?
I don't.
You should.
I have very much so been drawn to like witch doctors. Like I need some like healing witch doctor like that.
Did not mean to cut you off, but just
no, that was a worthwhile. I need to write that down. But yeah, there's always been something there, and then just like going through different things in life, like it just gets more brought to the surface, right? Like I for a long time very deeply struggled with finding like my calling, so to speak, and wrestled with that and worked through a variety of careers and educations and things like that. We're talking from, wanting to pursue intense martial arts focused things to like detective work to like graphic design to, it's all over the place. And this has been the thing that's like been a key component of like my soul. So it's always been there. It just sort of got pulled out more and more. And as my professional career has developed recently, I think what fulfills me the most is not necessarily like writing program and helping people train and things like that. I love that, but there's something very moving and special about taking someone that is like feeling really stuck or not seen or like basically like an alien in their own body, and getting them to get some semblance of like nervous system regulation and peace and movement that feels like, wow, like something is really, really changing. And the biggest thing thus far that I have seen is there's always going to be like a cult following to educational systems. Within my exposure to training stuff, it was like, I don't know, fucking normal working out, then like CrossFit, that's for sure its own like cult and vibe. Then it was like the FRC, which is functional range conditioning, people that are like only like doing, pails and rails and joint stuff, like in crazy things.
just bone breaking along the way.
Exactly. And it's like, you don't have to just like obsess over like one system. And I think just sort of referring back to some of the heart and soul around why we're doing this is like, we've drank many cups of Kool-Aid, right? Like, so you don't have to go on the grand sampling. Like we can walk you through some of that and save you some time and some effort.
The greatest hits catalog, baby.
Yes. And there's many of them, right? It's not just a thing. That being said, when it comes to like having a clear approach to working with somebody, much like you do, like there's a system in place. It's not the perfect system, but it's a system that works, and you refer back to it and you get to see, yeah, okay, we moved up 2.5 pounds here, or we moved from, 8 to 10 reps on this, and it's like looking clean, feeling good, yada, yada. Mine is through like the PRI lens, which is the Postural Restoration Institute. That's like my overarching bird's eye. And then from there, I try to, see what routes do we need to take. And it's been really, really helpful. It's made my ability to elicit change for somebody and make things make sense feel easier to me and provide, homework and things like that. But
sure.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I'm sure that it will change as the years go on in some capacity.
Yeah.
As you know, we keep trying to like grow and develop.
Optimize and evolve. But I mean, I will just say, even from my personal experience, where you and I differ, I will say that my approach is pretty straightforward. It is more so trying to find a middle ground of, this is what your expectations for your body are. This is how I can help facilitate you get there. But the success in what you do is that you have a much more, we're distilling it down or being very specialized into very unique parts of the body. And the complexities that you have to balance are actually far more vast than mine. And, you know, coming from someone who, again, we became great friends, but I still came to you as a person who's like, hey, listen, I'm having this problem with this mobility in my hips or a wonkiness in my shoulder. And, you know, something that I just think speaks not only to the quality of your intention, attention, and your character is that you have a very holistic and open-minded approach. And, you know, you're very good at distilling down whether or not, okay, this is exactly what's wrong. We can see this, the writing's on the wall. This is how we fix that.
Yeah.
Or, okay, we might have some ghosts in the machine. We're going to start at this point of your body. And, you know, you are fluid in being able to navigate between, okay, just pipe down, I'm going to fix it. It's not going to be pleasant. Or, you know, modulating through physical comfort, emotional comfort, mental comfort with people. Where I think that takes a certain intuitive medicine man like quality to what you do. And, you know, I myself have always had sterling reviews of your work and what we've been able to accomplish on my body. And again, anyone that I send to you always comes back like, yo, he's a wizard. And I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why I sent you to that person.
The wizard.
So,
I appreciate it, man. That's, those words are very, very meaningful and, will stick around in my head for some time. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
I mean, I think that exists within yourself too. Like there is a inherent level of like compassion and empathy that you have to have with people to be able to work in this space well, I think. You know, you're definitely a therapist for people, whether you want to be or not, like within the space, the amount of time you spend with somebody on a weekly basis and your ability to take yourself out of the equation in a way that really, really empowers and focuses purely on the person at hand. I mean, we've spoken about this on different occasions, but like you're so determined and dedicated to making sure that the time you provide with somebody is there's not a question of like, man, was he like somewhere else? And you're allowed to be as a person, but you do that in a way that like, it's remarkable, you know, your ability to like really drive through things. Even when there's been really tough shit going on for you, you still show up and you're showcasing of that in a way that's not like, look at me, but more like, look at what you can do is what I feel like is like your mantra. Like it's like an unspoken.
I love being a cheerleader, 100%.
Yeah.
I also love just propping up people's own will and motivation because I started there myself. I had zero confidence. And I had to just wade through years of muck and bullshit and slowly making the changes on myself to where I felt more comfortable on my own skin. So I love being there at ground level, mid-level, and then skyscraper level when these people, you know, my clients, friends, family, whatever, get to change their stars for the better. And that is the coolest thing for it. It sounds like a bumper sticker, but it's really the truth.
And that's the beauty of it is that like that true core piece of you is felt. I mean, the first time we like lifted together, you had given me a program and then we went to the gym together. It was like, it had been a while since I'd worked out with anybody, which I'm very picky about anyway, but it was so fucking fun. Like the most simple stuff. And there's just an electric boost you get from working out with somebody that really cares. I mean, I'm lifting so, you know, abysmal an amount compared to what you are. And I never once felt like I don't know, ashamed or like embarrassed. If anything, it was the polar opposite. It was like, wow, I'm actually surprised at how this stuff is moving. Right. And you're like, that's exactly the energy that comes across. And like, anybody could fake that, but you can't fake shit well enough that eventually you don't get caught. The beauty is that you're letting that out from a place that is like very true and sincere. And it really is what makes the difference. And I think is why your calendar is so booked and you have so many people and so many sessions a week, like, and are able to juggle it. Cause it's like, it's tiring. It's work. Right. But like, the stuff does not drain you in the way it would drain somebody that is actually miserable from it. Like,
no, I mean, seeing people win on a daily basis is winning for yourself too. So it's constantly refilling your own emotional coffers.
Sure.
So it would be different if, I was helping balance someone's checkbook every single day or like doing those kind of things. But seeing this electric energy when we get to see this person move a new weight or become a little bit more adept at a particular compound lift, things like that, when they have immediate like victory states in them, it's just like, well, we did that. I'm not trying to rob anything from them,
not.
But it's just it is electric. And when you get to share that with someone and see how positive an impact it makes on their day, their week, their month, the friends, or even their year, like, but
yes, no, that's very real.
So yeah, it's great. I love what I do. It's the most rewarding thing. It's given me so much more than I ever expected or even intended in a way. So it's just I reap dividends every week. It's great.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. And here we are trying to do, I mean, more or less the same, just in a different avenue. So I think if people have problem areas, things that they would like for us to discuss, questions that they have, topics. I know one of my buddies was asking about like digestion and digestive health. Like it could be literally anything. It can't hurt to throw it out into the bucket. And if it feels like something that we can, talk about, then we'll definitely let it rip. That being said, I will say this now. Don't ask a specific question like, why does my back hurt? My answer, without a doubt, is always going to be, come get assessed, go see somebody. Sure. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be Daniel, but like, don't even try to start with like, when I do this and this clicks, like, I don't know. And there's no way to know.
The bodies are chaos machines. Yeah. And unless you have a skilled set of eyes and hands figuring this stuff out for you, we're just pissing in the wind in terms of what that could be.
Yeah.
So ethically, it would just not be best for us to even comment on those kinds of things. But overarching themes, lifestyle alterations, habits, systems is it's going to be the bread and butter of what we're diving into.
Yes. Yeah. With a raunchy, twisted, gut-wrenching spin on all of it.
That's why it's the long and thick, baby.
That's right. Here we are. Episode 1. Kit and caboodle, baby.
All right. Let's get it.
Dunzo.